Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast are of the presenters and the presenters only and do not represent the views, opinions, or strategies of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Please like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 78, Flavors of the Week. I'm going to apologize in advance. You're stuck with just myself and James this week. Bill's having some technical issues, so he was not able to join us to where we could clearly hear him. And so on that note, James, how was your week?
Yeah, we haven't been able to clearly hear him for a couple of weeks now, so hopefully we can get that figured out for the next episode that we do for him. But my week was our state convention, of course, started the week out for me. That was really nice. It was great to see a lot of the people that I knew, met some new faces as well. It was great to see a lot of first-timers there. Standard business procedures through the entire state convention, which we'll talk about next week. Hopefully Bill's back. He's got his state convention this week, and that's when we'll talk about all the state convention stuff and wrap everything up then. But then went back to my route, and it was normal mail flow for me on my route every day. And got to Friday, and because of the shortened week due to state convention, I actually thought it was Thursday on Friday. So I was a little screwed up on that, but got through it and got to the weekend here and gearing up for the hottest week of the year so far for the state of Michigan. In fact, we're looking at excessive heat watch for an entire week. And I talked with our weather service here in Detroit and the meteorologists there, and they said that this is the first time they've ever issued one for 5 days in a row. The longest period prior to that was 49 hours. So this is a record-breaking week of heat for us down here. How about you, Kristin?
Well, as like with James, I was at state convention alongside James. And yeah, it was a good week. I initially had planned to stay for the post-convention board meeting. However, I had to bring my daughter back Tuesday night and decided, well, I'm off. I took off Friday, so I actually go back to my route tomorrow. I've been off all week. Wednesday, my youngest daughter says, "Hey, can you come get me after work?" I said, "Hey, I'm not working. Let me get dressed and I'll be on my way." So I made that 4-hour round trip to go pick up my youngest. And we had Ruby's doctor's appointment Friday. Things were actually looking pretty good. So, yeah. It's been a pretty laid back week for me. Like I said, I go back tomorrow. And yes, it's going to be warm. Not looking forward to that. I already have my bottles of water in the freezer for the morning. And yeah, what a Monday to go back, let me tell you. But other than that, it hasn't been too bad. Well, then Wednesday's the holiday, so we don't have to work Wednesday. So us regulars anyways. So that's kind of a bonus on that. But other than that, yeah, it's been a fairly laid-back week for me.
I think Wednesday is going to probably be one of the hottest days of the week for us down here, too.
Well, let's see. Right now, it's telling me 89 for Monday, which is actually 3 degrees cooler than what it was saying before, and then 87 Tuesday and Wednesday. But we'll see what it actually tops out at. I usually add another 5 degrees or more on that, so we shall see. At least I do know my central air works. I did try that one day this week, so my daughter will thank me for having that turned on.
Yeah, ours is 93, 94, 95, 94, 92 for the week. That's going to be a scorcher. I got my cooler ready, so I'll pick up ice in the morning at the gas station, fill the cooler up, and that lasts me through the entire route. So, but yeah, so that's actually going to start out our topics that I got for this week, and that is stationary events. We've heard it before. We've talked about it before. management has been getting down on not only rural carriers, but city carriers too on this. Corey on From 8 Arbitration talked about this, that there's actually an email out there that they are to talk to up to three carriers that are on the list of stationary events every day. And they're going to be pushing that, especially in these hot conditions. So wanted to first start off with that, especially with the heat wave that's building across this country. So, Kristin, have you experienced anybody talking about the stationary events in your office? Have you heard anything and things like that?
Nope. All I know is a couple weeks ago, our 204B did a training on stationary events, but it was geared towards the city side. That's the only thing that we've heard in my office about stationary events that I'm aware of, anyways.
I've had a few discussions with my supervisor over stationary events, and I'm like, okay, show me where they are. He pointed to them. I said, oh yeah, reload spot, reload spot, reload spot.
Yep.
Because I actually set myself up with specific reload spots that are also cooling spots. I can park the truck in the shade to do my reload and stuff like that. So after the second day of him talking to me, I turned around and I said, if you bring this to me again, I'm going to file a grievance for harassment based on me doing my job. And he has not come to me ever since. And that's the thing. You need to take care of yourself out there, especially in this heat. But you definitely do not let them harass you about them, because it is harassment. They're setting benchmarks for how long it takes you to move stuff around in your truck, how long it takes you to take a cooling period outside of these easy bake ovens on wheels, and things like that. Don't let them do it. You agree, Kristin?
I agree. Yeah, I've got my spots too if they were to ever question stationary events. And if they pinpointed it, we all have our spots where that is easiest for us to move our mail around, realign our packages, do what we got to do. Every route I've ever ran any amount of time, I've always had select spots where I did those things. So, yeah, if they ever question me, be like, yeah, that's my reload spot. You got a question about it, meet me out there tomorrow, same time, same place, Well, not necessarily same time, but same place, every day.
Yes, and disciplining you over GPS data is not allowed. We have MOUs and paperwork on that GPS data alone cannot be used for discipline. And that is what the stationary events are, is GPS data. So
I've
take
heard of
care of
some
yourself.
carriers getting dinged on stationary events when they're servicing CBUs.
Yep,
I
exactly.
oh, it looks like Bill's tried to hop back in. We'll see if it's working for him.
I'm trying. Is it working?
You are clear at the
You're
moment.
clear for now.
I just won't move my head. Okay.
How was your week, Bill?
Uneventful. I'm still out on medical and taking calls from carriers and questions. One of the most particular ones was a result of the SDNC where they lost 4 subs from an outlying office because they didn't want to drive so far. But they think that's okay because 1 sub from our office actually wants to transfer there. So, a 4-to-1 ratio is acceptable to them. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, always does.
Catch you up here, Bill. We were talking about stationary events and management harassing carriers over that, like Corey talked about on From 8 Arbitration, and how they're doing 3 carriers a day they have to talk to on stationary events if they're on the list. And I told them that I've actually been on that list, and my supervisor talked to me about it. The first time I went over there and he showed me where it was, and I'm like, yep, reload spot, reload spot, reload spot. And the second time after he got done talking to me about it, I said, if you come to me with it again, I'm going to file a grievance for harassment on this. And he hasn't messed with me since. But there are a lot of carriers that are getting treated this way. And we've got excessive heat watches here in Michigan this full next week. And this heat stuff, you're going to be stopping. You're going to want to get out of that truck to reload. I've actually started putting my reload in the back of my truck, so I have to get out of the truck to reload the truck so I can get out of the heat and cool myself off while I'm reloading and stuff like that. But would you like to speak on the stationary events and keeping yourself cool out there?
Well, the first thing I like to remind people is start hydrating the day before. Don't wait to the day of or when you start sweating. It's too late then. You can't get enough fluid into your system. Second of all, the post office is very good in putting some of these warnings into your scanners. Use those messages from the post office against them that tell you to slow down, to take a break, to rest in the shade. Their own messages are giving you clearance to have a stationary event in case of excessive heat. The other thing is, you can fill out a 1767, 67
Yes.
in regards to unsafe conditions because of the fact that these vehicles are microwaves on wheels. I mean, you have a 21 square foot windshield that does nothing but let the heat in. You have a firewall that does nothing but let the heat from the engine comes right in on your feet, your legs. Folks, don't play with your safety. We've already had a couple deaths last year from the heat. You're probably going to see some this year, and God help us. I hope we don't. But people are going to push themselves, and they're going to get pushed by management. Fight back. Stand up for yourself because your life is worth more than this damn job. But use
Yeah,
the information that the post office actually posts on there, and if you want, you can actually request their messaging and print it out and say, "Look, you're telling me to take these stationary events. I'm taking them."
and if they tell you to take them, you're on the clock because that is a instruction from management. So therefore, it is an on the clock, not a break.
Nope, it is not.
And
That,
just want to
that's not
remind
even
everybody,
carry discretion.
them harassing people on stationary events, that is what killed our city brother, Mr. Gates. They harassed him about his stationary events, threatened him with discipline up to and including termination because he was having stationary events to cool off in the Texas heat, and it killed him. Management killed him. Don't let it happen to you.
Your
Yeah.
life's not worth this job.
No, you got to take care of
Ever.
yourself first and foremost.
Yeah. So,
And these like you said, on average, coming up 3 carriers, that's a form of benchmarking.
Yeah.
yep.
They've got to meet quotas in regards to who they talk to. Again,
Yeah. And from 8 arbitration talked about it. It wasn't just from district managers. It was further up the chain in upper management that was bringing this directive down.
Yeah, gotta take care of yourselves, guys. That's the number one important thing.
Yep.
I mean, here outside of Philadelphia, they have a heat index over 100 all week long, and there is no rain, no relief, nothing. So, protect yourself. You're most safe and sound to your family.
Next topic I had isn't as major as that, but I got messaged by a carrier that they've been getting messaged on the scanner to return for late DPS. They don't return from the route in the middle of the route. They wait until the end, and then management has them run the entire route of DPS on a second trip.
I had this instance in my office, and it actually should be straight time. However, we did settle pre a class action grievance was before a grievance could be filed. We did settle for the second trip pay at the time, as long as everybody got paid for it. But going above myself at the time to seeking guidance, I was told it should have been straight time.
Actually, there is second trip scenarios and compensation issued out by our union. And it says management requires you to return to the office at some point during your route to pick up and deliver late arriving mail or parcels that weren't sorted before you left. Basically, at issue here is management is expecting you to leave the route and come back in, then go back out to deliver. First, do not answer your phone or acknowledge scanner texts while on the route. Cell phone use on the route is prohibited by management and the union except in cases of emergency. Rural carriers are not to be sent or acknowledged scanner texts. Operational concerns are not emergencies. Management does somehow arrange for you to return and go back out. Compensation is as stated below. The NRLCA position is that rural carriers should be compensated at the carrier's FLSA overtime rate, time and a half, as defined in Article 9.2.A.1.K, the same method to use to calculate the Christmas overtime rate. You should also receive additional EMA if you drive a POV. If management refuses to compensate you in this way, file a grievance. The only time you should be paid for second trip rate is if you have parcels left over that you couldn't fit in your vehicle, or mail left over that you couldn't fit in your vehicle. That is the only time you should get second trip pay. Right, guys?
Correct.
That's 100% my book. If it doesn't fit and requires a second trip, that's second trip. DPS or missorted mail or mail, that's coming at the time and a because of the fact that it's outside your has nothing to do with operations and on a daily basis. It's the one day and it's paid at the time and a half. Second trip or second trip, and
You're still breaking up, Bill.
I don't see how all right. I've tried. I've tried everything I could, guys. I'm going to go to the bar.
And that's the clearest thing we've heard yet.
When it's something important, it's
see you
garbled, but
later.
when it's like, fine, I'm going to the bar, it's like, clear. Sorry you're having technical difficulties, Bill. I'll get with you a little later and we'll talk about what to do with that. Try and figure this out.
But yes, no, it shouldn't be second trip pay. The reason we settled that in my office was because my postmaster didn't want to pay anybody anything. Because they were all back. Those that did take their DPS. We had one carrier at the time who chose not to take her DPS and just case it up for the next day. Those that did go out and run it were still back from running both times under evaluation. So she, because they were under evaluation for the whole day, didn't feel that she should have to pay them for that. And that's where we settled before it became a class action grievance on being the second trip pay. If she wasn't going to at least settle for that, then yes, it would have gone higher up. But that was the case in my instance on that one. Because they were all back within their evaluation. Why should I have to pay them? And
Because it's fair wages for fair work.
Exactly. So actually, a couple of the routes actually made out better doing second trip pay than they would have the other way around for the actual time it took them. So yeah, technically it should be. And no, they're not supposed to call you or text you. I have that hanging on the bulletin board, but that we've at least stopped the scanner texting, messaging on the rural side of my office. But them, when they text me or call me on my phone, I don't even bother answering it or looking at it. I wait till I get back at the office. Well, did you get my text? I don't know. Did I?
Exactly. Here it is. Oh, here it is. I see it now.
Yep.
All right. I had somebody reach out to me because a current manager wanted to kick up a grievance to step 2, was not willing to discuss it, was not willing to sit down and have a discussion about it, even though the carrier had filed a similar grievance to this one, pretty much identical grievance to this one previously with a previous manager. What's your take?
Repeat that again? What was that about?
So a carrier this actually was a steward reached out to me. They had filed a grievance for a situation that was identical to a grievance they had previously filed with another manager. And this current manager does not want to even discuss it, does not want to settle it, just wants to kick it up to step 2.
Well, that would be failure to comply to the first one, number one. And he wants to kick it up to step 2, then make sure you include that. I would include that previous grievance in the settlement with it and pass it up to step 2.
Yeah.
I mean, if
I agree.
local management doesn't want to talk about it, then yeah, I guess it should go up to step 2. Plain and simple.
I also think that manager is also failing to bargain in good faith.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it would fall under a failure to comply because it's that grievance is still within that office. And they're not complying. So regardless that it's a different manager, it's still the same office. Yeah, I would send it to step 2 and let district hash it out.
Yep, exactly. And you're going to get this as a steward. You're going to have new management, and even though you've got previous grievances that are identical to the ones you're filing now, the issue is that some managers don't want those grievances on their record. They don't want it shown that they had a grievance filed in their office under their name. Now, this could be a situation where this manager came from another office where they had a lot of grievances filed under them. And so when they move to this new office, they want it to look like they've changed their tune. They've become a better manager without all these grievances. So that way they can get off the list of grievance issue management that could result in an MOU 25. So
yeah, I would, that would be a management refuse to meet at step 1 automatically goes to step 2. Plain and simple.
Exactly.
And I think that would actually look even worse upon management for refusing it than it would be trying to hash it out. And if they couldn't come to agreement, then it went to step 2. That'd be one thing. But if they're flat out refusing, not wanting to do it, yeah, send it to step 2. Let district see it.
Yep. All right. I've actually talked with a carrier who's dealing with managerial harassment to the point that they are counting down the minutes to their retirement.
That sounds familiar.
And this goes to show that management doesn't care how much they violate the joint statements on workplace violence and harassment. They don't care that a manager is causing issues. This carrier alone, without the other carriers in the office, has filed 40 grievances against this manager and 6 EEOs. And yet the manager still works in this office.
Well, that's
and the other
too common, though.
And these other carriers are filing too. And my question is I know that our union tracks grievances with management. I know they keep an eye on who's doing what. But my question is when is enough enough?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we can't control management. I mean, a grievance process is the only thing we have, but when upper management just wants to move the troublemaker around because they don't know any better, or they don't have to answer to their faults. They don't have to be what's the word I'm looking for, James?
Accountable?
Yes, thank you. Accountable, and they know they don't have to. I mean, and that's quite obvious with the way that some of these managers handle themselves and treat carrier, treat people on the floor, not just carriers, clerks too. They don't, they know that they're not going to be held accountable for it. So why should they change their behavior? It's sad, and it's nerve-wracking because, I mean, management's never been great. I mean, there are great managers out there, don't get me wrong. There are some wonderful managers out there. Unfortunately, it's just a small handful. And majority of them feel like they're untouchable, and that's how they act because they know, well, yeah, they'll just move me. Maybe I'll go someplace else better.
Maybe I'll get a pay raise while I do that too.
Yeah, they don't care. They really don't. I mean, and it's sad that upper management will keep bouncing the same ones around for the same reasons from office to office to office without really negating. I mean, it negates anything that the union tries to do, or people filing the grievances, or EEOs, or anything of that matter. It totally negates all that when they just move them to another office and they repeat the same thing. Well, move them to another office, repeat the same thing. When's enough management? I mean, why can't you obviously you see a pattern here. Why aren't you doing anything about it? Because Lord knows we can't keep enough people on the on the floor positions, but let's hire more management. Okay.
I agree. I agree completely on that. You got managers that are coming in off the streets. A lot of them only have business management degrees that they've hired off the streets, or you have people that have never carried a piece of mail in their life being management now, and they have no clue what it takes to do this job. They just do what they're told from the person above them. And the person above them's in the same position that that person below them is. They never carried a piece of mail. They never delivered a piece of mail to a customer. They never got to see the joy on a customer's face when we delivered them their needed medication. Things like that. And
They never gave a hug to a customer as you're returning their loved one's cremated remains. They've never shared in
exactly.
the tears of that. They've never, been the one to hand a college graduate their college degree, or anything of that nature, or whether it's on the end of life, the beginning of life, the steps through life that we all see with our customers on our route, whether it's a newborn or a graduation, or sadly, we lose a customer. They don't understand because they don't deal with it. They've never had to deal with that on a personal level like we all have.
Yeah. And then they also have the mindset of, well, I'm the boss. You have to do what I tell you. I'm the boss. It's my way or the highway. You're just a little peon who means absolutely nothing to me. You're a number on a spreadsheet. You're part of the bell curve to the Postal Service.
And I'm going to look at him and be like, I can do my job without you. I am an adult, but you do my job without me. Then we'll see how that matters.
Yep. So it's one of those things that I do not tolerate harassment in any way, shape, or form in the Postal Service. You can have joking and ribbing with each other as long as it's mutually done. When it's one-sided, it's bullying, it's harassment, it's intimidation. You know, treating.
It's disparagement, especially if you're only pinpointing out one craft or another, or one carrier over another.
Or
It's
one gender over another.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen all three of those in my office. But anyways, yeah, no, it's. I swear, management just completely removes the humanity out of the job anymore.
I know, and a lot of that has to do with technology.
Yep.
Everything they have to do with monitoring carriers today is on the computer, except if you actually read the M38, they're supposed to be physically monitoring carriers.
They're
They're
supposed
supposed to be observing.
they're supposed to do route observations. They're supposed to do, we're getting back into doing route inspections again. When mine will be rescheduled for, I have no clue. I think there's stuff going on with the city side with the routes right now, so they're concentrating on that. But there's if they think that you're just sitting there on a stationary event, then get off your butt out of your chair from behind the computer and get out there and see what's going on. That's where we lose carriers, is because, well, they're going to bitch about stationary events, but when a carrier is sitting still for hours and they don't go out and check or don't do anything, that's what happens. And it has happened. And we've lost some really good people because of that.
Yeah, even here on the rural side.
Hmm?
Our good friend David Troutman.
Yes. So yes, it's don't get me.
Yeah,
We'll go down a rabbit hole we don't want to go down.
exactly. But another one that I've gotten this week was order of consideration. An RCA was not called for their primary route due to being in overtime.
That is a double-edged
That is
sword.
in, but the order of consideration says that even if they're in overtime, the primary relief carrier's responsibility is to the primary route.
Yes, and they are entitled to the evaluation of the route when the carrier's gone. And I have heard of a lot of POOMs, MPOOs, whatever you want to call them, that are trying to restrict RCA overtime. 40 hours, that's it. They can't work over 40 hours. This includes my POOM area too. This has been said. And it's BS. So you'd rather pay regular carriers overtime than pay an RCA in overtime? I don't care if you're table 1 or table 2 regular carrier, you're still paying out a lot more in OT for them than you are for an RCA.
And on top of that, it's a violation.
Yep.
It's a violation of the order of consideration. If that relief carrier is assigned to that route and that route is available to be worked, I don't care if you have an RCA doing clerk work or an RCA doing janitorial work and already in the office. You have to contact that RCA first and see if they're available to come into work.
Yep. And if they're sitting at home and you have somebody else run that route, that RCA sitting at home has a grievance.
Yeah, and that's what I told him. I said that RCA needs to file a grievance for loss of available work
Yep.
and talk with your designated union rep because that needs to be filed because that RCA should get paid. And that RCA is now going to get paid the evaluation of that route for sitting at home.
And
And that,
yeah, I mean, that was like this, with me being gone this week, I was gone Monday through Friday. I did work my K day on Saturday, last Saturday, I should say, just because they needed my sub on to assist with newer RCA. And she was looking at what day to give him as a relief day. And I'm thinking, he's entitled to the evaluation of my route. So he's entitled to those 46 hours and those 5 days that he's scheduled on my route.
ah,
Plain and simple. And he did work
yeah,
all those 5 days on my route.
it's amazing to think how much management tries to get away with. And 99% of it is coming right from the district manager. And I guarantee you at least 70% of that coming from the district manager is coming from the regional manager. And at least 50% of it's coming from national office down to the district manager. So these guys are on a power trip from the top down to harass carriers. And it's our job as well informed and educated carriers to hold management accountable. And it's up to our stewards to also help these carriers hold management accountable all the way through the whole chain.
Yeah, because once you get out of the office, all they're looking at is spreadsheets and numbers. And obviously, if an office is having issues, aren't you want to go to that office and say, okay, why are we having these issues? What can we do to help? Do we have to get more people in? Do we have to see if we got RCAs in another office that are available to help come in? But they're not. So shit rolls downhill, basically.
Yeah.
Instead of
And
addressing the issues at the office level like they should be, it all rolls downhill to all the offices in the area. No RCAs over 40 hours. None of this, none of that. Don't do this, don't do that. Instead of addressing the issues where the issues are at.
instead of solving the problem, they're kicking the can down the road by making these changes that make things worse for everybody else. And it's one of the biggest things that has been going on since before COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And It hasn't stopped. There were managers that were saying, "Oh, RCA should only work 6 days a week. RCA should only work 13 days in 2 weeks." Things like that. You know, in some offices that may work well. There are some RCAs that are still only working Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at offices that have good managers that people want to continue to work underneath. But there are some offices out there that the RCAs are working 7 days a week, 2 routes a day.
Been there, done that. Uh, I mean, I have that stretch between that last Christmas season as an RCA. I had that stretch between that Sunday after Thanksgiving. I did not have a single day off till Christmas Day, 27 days straight. And I had one other regular that had just gone full time, that September before. He and I were the only two of that whole office. Granted, not I was the only RCA at the time, but he and I were the only two that worked those 27 days straight. We had a couple other regulars that volunteered to come in on Sunday here and there, but we got her done. That's there is nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, some districts, some areas have their little rules on, not working RCAs over 6 days or 9 days, 13 days, whatever it be in a row. But contractually, there is nothing out there like that. RCAs could work 365, up to 12 hours a day. And there are some RCAs that would do it. But good luck. Yeah, it's just it's sad that they want to try and do that when they're already short anyways. And then to turn around and yeah. I'm trying to behave.
That's good. That's good. You're not going to go off like into a rabbit hole. We're not going to take this way too far.
No.
It's the biggest things about all of this is management is going to do the best they can to mismanage the office, abuse the carriers, break the contract, violate the MOUs and other documents that we have, and it's our responsibility as carriers, and even if it's not you that it's being affected to, still to step up and say, hey, that goes against this, this, and this. Because the only way to protect this craft is to become united together and working for a common goal, which is the protection of this craft in every document that has ever come forth.
There's a lot of documents out there, but, it doesn't mean one carrier needs to read them all. If you can try and at least get other carriers in your office to educate themselves to one point or another, especially if it's something particular that they may be going through themselves, point them in the right direction. Hey, read this. Hey, check this out, because, the more you know, better that you can try and nip it in the bud. Try.
Yep. And for the carriers that need to know information and are trying to understand the contract and things like that, there is the RCAM, the Rural Carrier Administration Manual. And that is basically a translation of the articles of the contract. A little bit easier to digest than the lawyer speak that's in there. Because unfortunately, contracts have to be in lawyer speak so that they are enforceable in a court of law.
Yeah, definitely check that out. I know you can get it up on the union website and stuff. It is definitely a helpful tool. It said it took so long to get it out. It definitely could use some tweaking, but it is a definite tool to use, especially when approaching management on issues.
And if anything in the RCAM text that the translation of the article contradicts what's in the article supersedes the RCAM translation.
Yeah, what he said.
Basically, out of everything, the contract supersedes anything management puts forth.
Yes.
It is the law of the land for rural carriers.
And
you can have
the RCAM basically is giving you what is supposed to be a joint agreed upon interpretation of the article it's explaining.
So Well, that was literally all I really had. If Bill was here, this would have been an hour-long episode at least.
Let me see if I got anything here real quick. I know I've had a few things pop up, but we'll see if anything
Yeah,
important.
and if anybody in the chat has anything they want to bring up, you know,
So what if you need an RCA to cover a route and you're reaching out to offices, but you have local managers in other offices nearby saying no or telling their RCAs you do not want to go work in that office because management is blankety blank.
wow.
Uh-huh.
Um, wow. That is quite interesting. So management against management there, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've heard of them doing that to RCAs that they don't like, saying no, you're not going to go to any other offices. You're not allowed to volunteer at any other offices, or we'll fire you. But I haven't heard that one before.
Management telling
Personally,
their RCAs you don't want to go work there because management sucks. Um yeah, yeah, I can think of a couple instances not too far away.
yeah. Um,
So needless to say, most of, if any, borrowed RCAs that we have anymore are driving pretty darn close to that 50-mile range.
yeah. So one of our listeners in the chat said, and when my leave was denied because of 6-day rule, I asked, "Are you sure?" Article 10 says nothing about 6 days. Are you sure? The next day, it's magically approved. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Standing up to management and just saying, "Hey, that's not in the contract. That's not in the PO 603. That's not in the M38. Can you show me in writing where it says that that's the case?" That's the biggest way to get management to shut down on things.
Ask it to be shown in writing. Yep, had that instance too where, well, you need to put a leave slip in for your K day because you're on the relief day work list. Just want the K day. And I'm like, here's all the information you need. And then Put Out looks at her and says, will you show that to me in writing, please? Yeah, that changed real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest way. If management's wants to try and impose something or come up with their own rules, you just ask for that sucker in writing. And if
Yep.
they give you some little hand type thing in writing that says, here, this is what I said, it won't hold up. Agree with it.
Yep. Do want to put a little somber note here. We do wish our friend Josh all the best. He had to put the male cat down, and so we wanted to wish him the best on that.
Yes,
We're here for him.
that pulls at the heartstrings. Definitely,
Especially all of us.
we're gonna miss male cat pictures.
Yes.
So.
But anything else you got that came to you in the past few weeks, Kristen?
I'm looking. Let's see here. Let's see. One was about a route inspection. They did get it resolved, but here's the thing: is, when you have your own, especially with POVs and route inspections, and I know quite a few carriers that may or may not have right-hand drives, but they take all the seats out that they don't use, so they have more room for parcels and whatnot. And then route inspections come up. They were able to. That was the biggest question on that, and they were able to come to an agreement where management followed behind them on the route inspection. How that worked, I don't know, but that's what they were able to come up with. I know route inspections have kind of been a big one, especially with those that drive Metruses and those that have POVs that they have retrofitted for their needs.
Yeah. And if you do not have a safe location for that manager to secure themselves in that vehicle, it means a seat with a seatbelt. A lot of states, it's illegal to not be a seat belted in a vehicle safely. Yes, our LLVs have that crappy little bolted in seat that wouldn't survive an accident if it tried, but it's still a seat belted seat that is installed in the vehicle. And that is required by most state laws. And as postal manuals say, you have to abide by federal and state laws when driving on the roads.
All right, I do have one, and this is about brand new RCAs. This will be a good one. We have an issue here in my office. We've had 4 new RCAs in the past 2 months. The first girl got 3 weeks of training with 5 different trainers because she couldn't get along with anyone and refused to do anything. The second girl I trained 3 days and another got trained 1 day, and she's doing great. Now we had 2 guys come in yesterday. One guy was put with a trainer and the other guy was tossed around. Nobody wanted to train him, so they ended up giving him 1 row off of my case to deliver since I was off. Today he came in and they put him on a route, but since we only had 1 jump seat and the other guy is riding with his trainer, they told him to come back at 11 and carry half the route. No training, no casing, no learning where to get the mail, parcels, etc. No learning either the return to where return to writer mail goes, etc. They will then schedule him to do the route by himself Saturday. The regular's upset because it'll affect his route evaluation as well. I'm not happy. He carried on my route yesterday. Is there any recourse? I did send her the article on training. So
I mean, if the steward could file grievances on behalf of the carriers, that carrier would be protected.
if the
That carrier would
office
be
had
able.
a proper OJI in place,
DOJI could file a grievance.
well, not only that, but if they had a proper OJI in place, then the scheduling of the new trainees would go in order and the OJI would be working with that new trainee on their primary route. Not the OJI's route, the primary route that RCA is assigned to.
And that OJI would get, is it P time right now?
Yeah, it is P code for a regular, yes.
Yeah.
You get paid
And that would mean
your route evaluation for training on another route.
Yeah.
And if you do it on your relief day, it's a DACA Y and you get an X day. I know, I've done that twice.
Yeah. And that is setting up RCAs for failure.
Absolutely.
Is what that manager is doing. It is setting up RCAs for failure. It is setting up for evaluation failures. It is setting up for year-long problems in that office. And it's sad to hear. It's sad to see. I understand the manager wants bodies to cover for mail and stop the bleeding of 2080 and 2240 times for regular carriers and stuff like that. But that's not the way to go about it. And in fact, the carriers that are getting that RCA to touch their route, they should be filing a grievance because technically that RCA should not be touching that mail until they are properly trained on how to run a route. And that includes the OJI time.
And they're supposed to be on their primary for the first 2 full pay periods following the OJT, with the exception of running parcels.
So, in my opinion, the district rep should be involved in that.
I completely agree. That would be the one that you'd want to get on the horn for to your ADR/DR immediately.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we can't keep RCAs either.
Yeah. Next one is the 50-mile radius is crap. Some people already travel to their office due to bad management in their own town, from our listener chat.
Yeah. And it's 50 miles as the crow flies. It's not even...
That really...
Thing is you won't find... You rarely actually find the 50 miles in writing.
Yeah. And I also think of areas like the UP of Michigan and down along the lake shores where it's less than 50 miles across the lake. And so you're sending the guy over into Wisconsin
Mhm.
50 miles as the crow flies. He's driving 130 miles to get there.
Yeah, I don't see gonna have that happen too much, but no,
That's how it's
it's.
worded.
I know. I know. Unfortunately, yes. It.
But you do have the FLSA standards on travel pay. We have that in our our Discord server. Which section is that in, Kristen? The Discord server that you put that in?
That's a good question. I think I put it under. Gonna be under useful info. Yeah,
Well, you guys post it in. You can always post it in the helpful info
yeah, it's in
on
there
the
somewhere.
Discord, and it's also on our group on Facebook. You can find it, and it talks about how they should be paying you for that travel time to those
Yes,
offices, and you should be paid from your office to that office and back.
yes,
And
definitely.
it also applies to your 12-hour rule for the day. Well, 11 and a half plus a half hour lunch. All right. The next one, unscanned parcels. They want proof.
Oh, depends. If you got it right there in the office, I would just say unscannable parcel. Here's your proof. There we go. If you're out on the route when they didn't see what you took when you went in, carry your discretion.
Here's my argument. You want proof? Show me in writing in the rural information where it says what an unscanned parcel is. There is no definition as it stands because our contract, the latest contract, deleted the mail count section of the PO 603. And as I had stated earlier, the contract supersedes any and all manuals that the post office has. So if they try to bring the measurements back to you, as discussed at last year's state convention with our Director of Labor Relations, Bridget Boziak, they're still in discussions on what an unscanned parcel is. Still is no answer on what an unscanned parcel is from our union or management. But I have come to the conclusion that if I have to handle it differently than a flat or a letter, meaning it doesn't fit in my case, it's an unscanned parcel because you're handling it differently. So you're doing an extra step. You should be paid a different rate for touching that object and delivering it, no matter where it is that you're delivering it to. I've delivered diplomas into a large farm box mailbox as an unscanned parcel. I've had U lines that were more than an inch and a half thick.
That
That was an
one,
unscanned.
that one, I
That
keep
one,
getting.
management argues that it's not an unscanned parcel; it's a flat. But if you read the PO 603, it's a 1 inch slot for flats. So being 1.5 inches, it does not fit in the 1 inch slot for a flat.
Yeah, and I do know Upper Union will say U lines are flats, but
Yeah,
that's where we'll just leave that as a carrier discretion.
exactly. And that's why you've got to tell them, show you the definition of an unscanned parcel. There isn't one for rural. There's one for city. There's one for clerks, but there is not one for rural.
All
On
right.
top of that,
Okay, go
on
ahead.
top of that, if they're asking you to come and show them something, it's 8127 time.
Or do it under start load. Either way. Here's a good one.
8127 time gets them to stop
Yeah, that's
quicker.
true. This is true. You're outside of my normal route duties. That would be 8127 time. Okay, here's a good one. Process for overtime if needed to assist a down route. All right. If you are volunteering to assist on a route that's down, the correct way of handling this is to run your route in its entirety first, hit your return to DU duties, finish up your end of shift, and then when you go and then hit PM casing, and then change over to the other route in your scanner, which is option 6. And then you would, when you go to load that portion of the route, you're going to hit start load and your end load, and then go run the route and track your time from the moment you started over to that route. So that moment you hit PM casing, that's your start time on that other route. And then when you get back and you finish all the duties that you were doing with that other route, you change your scanner back over to your route and hit clock out. That is supposed to be the proper way of doing it. If it's a portion of a route that butts up to your route, and you know you could easily take it while you're out on the street, my suggestion from experience would then be to flip over when you load your route, or anytime you're loading the other route, flip your scanner over to the other route, hit the start load and load, then back over to your route, and then when you go to off your route and into the other route, you would then just hit the change this route over again. Watch your time, keep track of your time from the moment you left your route to the moment you come back to your route, and that will be your time for that other route. And then, of course, when you get back to your route, flip your scanner back over again. And then that, you're going to watch. I know in my office, they prefer, if I work an hour and a half on another route, they just prefer me to write the 90 minutes route 2 or something on the end. It's easier for them when they go and put it in the dropout rather than trying to, okay, you started at that time, you started at that time, you did this, you did that. Just keep track of those times that you were doing the work for the other route. And when they put it in the system, it'll actually deduct it off of your complete time from your clock in to your clock out on your route.
The only thing I would add to that is, and this is just my opinion, it should be what we do, but it's my opinion, is if you do the first one where you come back, do your end of shift, PM casing, and you go deliver the route, when you come back to the office, you should hit start load and then hit end load when you're done with the route. So you give that route the end of shift time of you putting the stuff away from that route. That's my opinion. It is not what is written in the books, but that would be my opinion just to help the evaluation of that route out.
All right, James, you got to do the talking. I got to take a phone call real quick.
So going back to our previous discussions, one of our listeners said, you have GPS on the scanner, tell them to go get it. We don't get paid to document that, speaking of the unscanned parcels. That's another great argument you can make with management. You know where we did it. Go look and see what it is. I don't remember what it was. I delivered it, and I forget what I delivered when I get 2 boxes down the road from it. Great argument to have. Sherry says if they throw it in my cart instead of doing their jobs, it's an unscan. Otherwise, I don't get credit for it. There is a step 4 out there that if it is in your cart, it is an unscanned parcel. Doesn't matter if it's a flat, doesn't matter if it's a letter. It's in your cart, it is a parcel. And that was actually back during the old mail counts, but it is a step 4. It is still valid. It doesn't say anything about mail counts in the actual text of it. It just says anything in the cart is considered an unscanned parcel. So you can still use that step 4 for anything that's in that parcel. I guarantee you, if you use that step 4, management's going to try and pull every unscannable parcel they think is a flat out of your cart to stop you from getting that unscanned parcel credit. But then again, that's benchmarking. Using the unscanned parcel numbers to harass carriers is benchmarking.
I'm back.
So, welcome back.
Yeah, no, there was a little incident with my car in the parking lot where my daughter parked it for work. So, nothing major.
Oops.
Yeah, nothing major. They kind of, I don't know if somebody backed into it or hit it or something. It's just kind of like a little scratch below the tail light, but They were bringing the guy was bringing over the insurance info in the bar next door in the back parking lot. They have the camera footage too, so nothing major. If I ain't worried about it, it might just be something you probably barely notice. I don't know.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah.
just that, but also in the chat.
Wow. Yeah.
If a carrier is getting harassed about it every week, like I said about the stationary events at the beginning of this episode, um, that carrier needs to turn around and say, "You've asked me about this multiple times. You ask me again, I'm going to need an 8191 grievance form because this is turning into harassment."
Yeah, that would definitely be harassment if they're doing that every week. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously there's a pattern, so why is it now becoming an issue?
It's not. It's no longer benchmarking because it's a constant pattern. So obviously, it shouldn't be showing up as a benchmarking marker on the scanner stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's crazy.
so she's doing it for each sack, and they're complaining about it versus all the parcels that she's actually delivering.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be threatening the same thing if they were getting mad about the sacks. I'd be like, well, then I'll just claim every individual package in there and bite me. At least she's just, doing it the proper way of counting the sacks. So, yeah,
Yeah. She's not opening the sacks and giving them the parcels. She's giving them the sacks. So
yeah,
I would ask management if they're not an unscanned parcel. I want to see you case it. I want to see you case this sack into my case. Get it to fit.
uh-huh, yeah. Wow, management just never ceases to amaze me at times with their levels of ignorance and stupidity at times. Yeah.
Yeah.
A route drop from a
Her,
48K to a 42J. Ouch.
ow. That makes me hurt.
Yeah.
And I was a
Uh,
42K, so yeah. I mean, that's oh man. And I mean, I'm guessing that if she really wanted to, she could. I guess the question would be, are those USPS bags that she's delivering? And if that's the case, she probably should be taking those parcels out of that bag and delivering them individually when she gets to the jail and counting them each one as an unscanned parcel. If it's a USPS bag, and bringing the bag back when she comes back from the route and putting them in the proper receptacle on into shift duties.
I don't know. There's a lot of underlying variances that we obviously don't know from not being in that office. So,
Exactly.
yeah. I know my old office, I had a t shirt printing company that, would get bags of returns and pick up. Well, I didn't. The pickup was part of a city collection route or part of the city route collection wise to pick stuff up there. But once in a while, I would have to run and get collections, and everything was already in the bags. I didn't have to, touch any of it. So yeah, it should count as each bag if you're not having to do anything else with the packages inside the bag. Yeah, yeah, we rotated bags too. I did the same thing at one of the other companies, our home-based business that sold a lot. We'd go and pick up the bags, and we'd leave bags there, or they'd stop by and pick them up, and yeah, rotate them out. So yeah, each sack should be counted as an unscannable parcel at that point, because that's how you're
I do
handling
that with,
it. And then if you have additional trips, that's additional trips to the door.
yeah, door miscellaneous in some instances.
No, that would be that would be trip to door.
In the pickups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, authorized. It's an authorized dismount, so yeah, it
Okay.
would be authorized dismounts.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's correct. Um, you got anything else in your notes, Kristen?
I don't. So if we want to wrap this up tonight, make it somewhat short and sweet.
Yeah, I mean we're what at about an hour now.
Yeah, we are.
right. Yeah, I think we can wrap this up pretty much. Just remember, everybody, management's going to do what management does, and it is our responsibility to hold management accountable to what they do. Whether it is telling us an instruction that flies in the face of the contract or the PO 603, the M38, or any other documents that we have, it's our responsibility to step up and let them know that it's incorrect. And if they are not willing to correct it, then we have to grieve it, because it's your money. Fighting for your money is worth it. Even if it's just a penny, it's worth it, because you're holding management accountable to a contract that was negotiated in good faith and should be adhered to. So same for stewards. They should be fighting for the craft and fighting for the carriers and getting the carriers remunerated and made whole. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
Absolutely, guys. Remember, especially with this heat coming up in most areas, stay safe, stay hydrated, stay cool. We are a first line of defense against management. I get it. Some people don't like standing up for themselves, or they just want to ride under management's radar. But, if you don't stand up for yourself, nobody else will do it for you. You just have to remember that. Not every office has people that are going to stand up for their entire office. That's for sure. So sometimes you just have to bite that bullet and stand up for yourself. Definitely, it does help against management at times. Definitely does. But all right, guys, everybody take care this week. Stay safe, stay hydrated, try and stay as cool as possible, and we'll be back next week.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.